You now have a quorum, so you can get started.
Good evening. Welcome to the May 10th, 2022 meeting of the Newtown Township Trails and Greenways Committee. I'd like to notify people that this meeting is being recorded. Secretary Cook, can you please read the roll?
Committee member Blagraff. Committee member Jingisa. Absent.
Your mic's not on.
Committee member Blagraff, absent. Committee member Jingisa, absent. Committee chair Custer.
Here.
Committee member Falcon, absent. Committee member McCarthy, absent. Committee secretary Cook, present. Committee member Carr,
Present.
committee vice chair DiVincenzo,
Present.
committee member
Present.
Archer,
Present.
and staff present. Township manager
I'm here.
Stephen Neese, and township public works manager
Present.
Jarrett.
Okay, may we please have a moment of silence? I'd like to you to keep in your minds Joe Catania, Township Supervisor, who passed away, but also Doug Blagraff, husband of Amy, who is undergoing serious operation today. Please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is public comment for agenda items only. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next item is the agenda. I would like to make a motion to add under old business discussion and potential action regarding prioritization of projects. Do I hear a second?
Second. Oh, sorry. 1 second, sir.
You need to do this in 2 steps.
Okay,
So one step would be that you want to amend the agenda for what that is.
that's what I'm doing.
And that's what you're doing.
But we're not going to vote on it until later.
I guess clarifying, because we've already had public comment, what would be the action
Okay.
that was intended?
Basically, we had discussed projects at our last meeting and tried to prioritize them. We didn't quite get finished, and we were just going to finish that up and come up with a list of 5 top projects.
Okay.
Is there any public comment on that agenda?
Okay. Now go ahead, add it to your agenda, and then
Yeah.
we'll have to republicize.
Okay. All right, I did make a motion. We had a second. Is there any committee discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The next item is to approve the minutes of the April 12, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any committee discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we're on to new business now, 7.1. And Terry McCarthy is not here. See if I have something here. I know she has in mind what's called Walk the Meadows Preserve and Tour of the tavern. That's on May 15th and 1:00 p.m. It's going to be about 4 miles total walk, but the Square Tavern at the end of the walk will be open, so that should be good as well.
Yeah, two other things. Want me to read those, the two other events?
Uh,
I have the other
Oh,
two
do you?
events.
Okay, if you
Uh-huh.
could read that, it would be wonderful.
June 3rd from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Table at the Farmers Market, opening day. That's another event, which is at St. Albans Episcopal Church. And then also June 4th at 9 a.m., Walk on Goshen Trail. That coincides with Newtown Historic Day at 9 a.m. Those are the events that she has.
Okay. And all of those are before our next meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to approve all 3 of those events.
I move to approve all 3 events.
Second,
Second.
is there any committee discussion on them? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion is approved. Okay, next on the agenda is 7.2, discussion and potential action on Listener Meadow Trail, temporary. Erin Cook.
So there is a trail identified in the master plan that the Trails and Greenways Committee is moving forward on, which is a connection of the loop from Goshen Trail across the Listener Trail to the Meadow Preserve, and then back down the Listener property to a crosswalk across Goshen Road back to the Goshen Trail. And if you remember the mission and the intention of this committee, it is to have trails be continuous loops and actually go somewhere. And many of the trails in Newtown Township stop, like the Goshen Trail, for example, just stops there. I have gotten a little bit of background from Steve Nees on what's been done so far in the township. And there is a 9-month transition period going on right now with the Listener HOA. And they're going to take some time thinking about that trail and when is the right time to implement it. Steve is working with the president of the HOA to talk about what would be our next step forward to try to create that loop. On the list of trails, there is the proposal for a temporary connection through Echo Valley Lane. There is a trail behind the Meadow Preserve. And so what this committee is looking into, is there a feasibility to use Echo Valley Lane, the street, as a connection, and in tandem with using that temporarily before Listener builds their trail, working with PennDOT to do a crosswalk. And it's all sort of in an exploratory phase right now. So I sent all of you information that we have from the township right as of now. And really what the first steps are going to be is just looking at the feasibility of having a trail, talking with residents, my neighbors, about if it is something that we would like to move forward with. Is it something that's been discussed already? We're just sort of in the infant stages right now, but I sent you all just what we had sort of gone through as a way to outline potential trail projects, and just identifying the goal, as I said, to create a continuous loop for the trail within the township. Are feasibility studies required? Yes. Habitat studies, wetland studies, feasibility studies, involving PennDOT in a crosswalk, getting engineering for a little bridge because the creek Lewis Run is back there. And certainly first and foremost as well, we would need to get the buy-in from residents and neighbors that this is something they would want. There's a dead end street in the neighborhood that is where the potential trailhead would be. But there are houses on either side and there are longtime residents who have lived there. So I don't have any background yet as to if it's something that residents want or don't want. And that's just really where we're starting right now is first of all, looking to see if this is something we want to put on our trail prioritization list. Is this something that this committee wants to have as one of the top 5 trails that we work on? Or is it something that maybe we would wait for Listener to do the quote permanent trail? And we've, included some ideas in this proposal for Listener, making sure that, we help with making it a natural trail. There wouldn't be any pavement, putting up evergreen trees so that people in their backyards aren't looking at the trail, making it a very natural, almost sort of, part of the naturescape. Certainly nothing that would be an eyesore. And again, making sure that we understand, what would be publicized. My opinion at the end of this proposal is that there would be, private lane signs put up. There would be no parking signs put up. That's something we'd have to work through the township on. The parking would be publicized at the Goshen parking lot because it's a continuous loop. People can walk back there. The long-term plan for the Listener permanent trail is that you would park eventually in the parking that we will establish behind the Meadow Preserve, behind Episcopal Academy on the property that the Newtown Township owns. So it's a long-term endeavor with Listener. So the idea was, is there something that we can do to create a continuous loop before the Listener trail, and kind of thinking about those two things together.
Okay, Mr. Sharitz, were you able to take a trip down there today and take a look? And what was your feelings?
So I reviewed the area you were talking about at the rear of the Meadow Preserve. So I saw where on the Listener open space you were talking about that someone has fabricated a trail already. It is far too early for us to make any kind of a comment as to whether anything like that is actually feasible from the standpoint of, grade and safety concerns and things like that. But I certainly see the path that you were discussing.
Okay. Any other board comment?
So I know that I missed the last meeting with being out on paternity leave, but you're saying, so basically, as I understand the history of this and everything that's going on, is Listener Trail is talking about doing a permanent one, but we want to do something temporarily in the meantime. With the parking situation we're talking about, would we be able to identify so that we don't, I'm assuming, irritate the people in that community of people parking along the street? This is where the map comes in again. Is a trail map to show that the trail doesn't actually start in the meadows, but it actually starts and it goes to the sidewalk from the parking lot. So even though the trailhead is essentially going to be on the meadow spot from our property, technically we want people to start there. So anybody researching and looking it up, what was the website? I think it was the Haverford Trails map, shows our trails actually and our parks on theirs.
Yeah.
We could in a way promote that and make sure that that trail map is updated so that we're not making, that would be my only comment of what I heard is to try to make sure we're not making, not enemies, but upsetting those people. We don't want random people parking along the side because when they look on the map, it shows that that's the start of the trailhead. They're just going to go right to it.
Yeah.
People are going to punch in their GPS, fly right to it. So that's just the only comment I would have.
Yeah, when Aaron and I went down, we took Rich Kerr with us, who's the Friends of Haverford Trail.
Okay, great. Yeah.
And he has a wonderful little device which enables him to map out the trail while he's walking. And he, I'm sure, has put that up on the Friends of Haverford Trails. And this is what Aaron sent out to you.
Yeah.
That was.
That
was
screenshot there that he
Rich's
did
comment.
on Google
Okay.
Maps
That was
is
from that.
embedded in the document. That's how he maps out his trails. I think we haven't gotten to the point yet of talking to neighbors and residents, but in my opinion, I spoke to Steve about this. I don't know how we would figure this into the official map. It would, I think it's a temporary trail for people who really know Newtown Township trails. I don't think it's something that we would be, certainly like you said, publicizing as a trailhead. In fact, as a neighbor in Echo Valley, I really wouldn't want it publicized too much at all. But the first thing we have to do is talk to the Lister HOA because they own the 8 acres of buffer between the Meadow Preserve and Echo Valley. So that's sort of the first idea, is talking to them about being able to use that property. And if that's not possible, then it's not happening anyway. So that was sort of where we were thinking of going through the Lister HOA first. And then the second step would be talking to residents, because as
Yeah,
Steve
let me
Neese and I just,
register something here. I think before we talk to neighbors, we should be talking to the Echo Valley Association
okay.
and just at least give them a heads up as to what we're doing.
Is that
So,
not the HOA?
so I think your first step is, if this is something that you want to pursue, your first step is to make a presentation to the board of supervisors, that this is what you want to do, and go before them and say, we would like your support, that this is what we're going to head out and do, and here's our steps, here's the plan. And the plan is to have a conversation with the Lister HOA, the Echo Valley HOA, also with the residents that are directly or could be directly impacted by where its location is. And before you ever start, right? I mean, that's got to be
Yeah.
done first.
Steve,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
So remember when we sat down and we reviewed the plans of the new, what was the name of that? Anthony, the one that we reviewed, the recommendations.
Are you talking about the development, the Stony Knolls property?
So, yeah, so did Lister have inside their plans trails that they presented beforehand? So did we ask that question already?
Well,
That
part of,
predates all this.
so you had two things that have happened.
Uh-huh.
This committee is,
Yeah.
what are you, about 9 months old or so?
Yeah.
So this committee is about 9 months old. And so you're just now focusing on acting on a document that was created about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Well, I guess it was a little bit before that, wasn't it? It was actually right before COVID started, but we went through that process, and then kind of in COVID, it was passed. And in that document, there was a list of trails that we thought were important in the township. And one of those trails is a trail that goes basically from the back end of the Township Meadow Preserve and trails back over and connects to the Goshen Trail. What I would make note is that that document that was put together was a public document. We went through a public process. It was advertised in the community. We had public meetings for people to come out and make suggestions and do that. But that document does not mean that it's not a guarantee. It's places where people thought that would be a good place for a trail. And so there's steps that have to be taken going back and going through and looking at the feasibility. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the Newtown Square rail branch trail and give an update there. And that's another example where we're going to be doing a feasibility study. We're going through the RFP process, and we're doing that. This is a little different in what you're wanting to do, in that this isn't meant to be the final product. This is meant to be, like, I think, a short-term solution to helping people have access to the Meadow Preserve I think from Echo Valley, but also to potentially let people do a full loop if they park at the Goshen, at the John West or the Square Tavern and just be able to do a full loop. We're also looking at, some other parking at a couple other places that would allow people to park and get onto the trail and potentially do that full go around. And that's what we're looking for. And so the key here is the board has basically said, we know all of these possibilities. What the board is looking for from you is what's your priorities that you're working on. We already know, like I said, the one trail that we're doing the RFP for the feasibility study. But if this is another one, then we want to take that back to the board. We want to present to them why we think this one's important, why we want to do it early. And I understand it makes this loop, and that's a big deal. It really does start allowing people to go out and have a full walk and not necessarily be backtracking. It's actually completing that loop, which is great. And then it then gives, and then we set up in direction and but there is a lot of talk that has to happen. There's a lot of meetings that have to take place between potentially some residents that may be impacted in that, do we look at putting no parking in? Do we look at putting, what those kind of things as part of the process? And so it's a process and we have to go through the process. And so, and during that process, we'll be taking information. If Listener doesn't agree to having the trail there, that would probably stop everything very quickly, because it's their property. And that's the first step. So
That's what I thought, is we're presenting it, sort of the idea to the Board of Supervisors, see if they're on board with it, and then find out if we can talk to Listener about using that property. And if not, it's a non-starter.
So can I ask a question about procedure then?
Yep.
So we then talk about this, we come up with an actual proposal to present to the Board of Supervisors. Once the Board of Supervisors, assuming they would say, okay, yes, you have permission to move forward with your next steps, that next step then would be meeting with the HOA and the Echo Valley Association, right? We'll meet with them, whoever their board is, I'm assuming. Who does that? Is it the Board of Supervisors or is it people from this actual committee?
I think it's probably a combination of probably some staff.
Okay.
I'm building a relationship with the Listener HOA as we're going through. It would make sense probably for me to be a part of that as we're, starting that conversation. And I've had part of that conversation before, and there's parts of this that I know are going to meet with some concern.
Sure.
There's some real issues. And so we've got to work through those issues. I don't know that it has to be a staff person, but I would recommend that in the process, it's probably somebody from this committee, probably a staff member and potentially a board member as we go forward.
Yeah, because that would be good because again, obviously, yourself, George, like you guys can speak to a lot of the stuff that are probably the questions on how this stuff actually gets applied that they would ask. We could talk about the overall plans, how this goes into it, and then the Board of Supervisors kind of is the heavy, I'll say.
Yeah.
Maybe to have a little bit more weight behind, yes, this is a serious thing the township is wanting to do. Okay. All right. Thank you for
We
answering.
will have enough more credibility if we had a board member and a member of management, because that makes a lot more progress than maybe just us.
Well, and particularly if we get into negotiations on some things, the authority to negotiate really resides with the board level, not, unless they give it to me, but mostly it resides with the board level.
I do want to make one comment. I live right at the top of Echo Valley and Goshen. And I can tell you that there's a lot of traffic going up Echo Valley as we speak. So that this will add a little bit more, but I think people are used to the foot traffic.
Are you talking about car traffic or walking traffic? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, part of the idea when looking at this temporary trail, as I said, is there is a lot of foot traffic going from Echo Valley across to the Goshen Trail. So as we do a feasibility and engineering study for a crosswalk, it would probably be a pretty substantial crosswalk that would make crossing Goshen Road much safer for everyone
There
who's
probably
walking.
should be one now, given the amount. of
There's,
traffic.
I think there should be.
Well-
There are a lot of people from Echo Valley cross Goshen Road to get to the Goshen Trail.
Right.
So we would work with PennDOT to find out where is the most level space? Where do you have the most visibility from both sides to give all of the area residents a safer crossing?
I
The
think
site
most of
distance
the
is
walkers would be able to do that now, because you get up there and you can see a certain sight distance. And it's right near where the trail begins,
Yeah.
at least for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The idea is that it's supposed to be a benefit for everyone,
Mhm.
the residents, the neighbors, and everybody who's coming and walking the trail and parking on the Goshen lot.
and it will be a benefit for the people in Echo Valley, because they can get onto the trail without having to walk up the street and cross Goshen.
Mhm.
So I think that could be a very strong.
I think the one important thing, which we've already all mentioned too, though, is that it is not advertised as any kind of a trailhead, or we can cross that bridge when we come to it, whether it's on the official map, but there is no appetite. I've had one meeting with Steve for there to be parking or cars on Echo Valley at all.
That makes sense.
And no one's really starting the trail there. They're doing the loop temporarily until the Listener Trail is put into the crosswalk across Goshen.
Okay. Please. Okay, we'll make an exception in your case. We get so few.
Well, it directly affects me. So
Okay,
my
can you
name is
identify yourself and your?
Chris McConaughey. I live at 323 Echo Valley Lane. I live on one side of Springwater Lane. When we talked about this, I guess 2 years ago with the plans, and EVCA was involved, Mike Alfiero. There was talks of actually having access to this trail through Springwater Lane, the dead end street. I mean, I'm happy to discuss anything like that, but after talking with Mike, I mean, the way this Meadow Preserve is set up is just unfortunate. The way, I think we screwed up the township and first of all doing it. I mean, to get access from 252, you have to go around the loop, come back. I guarantee whether you put signs up there on Springwater Lane and Echo Valley Lane, if people know there's access at that dead end street, that's where they're gonna go. They'll park wherever, I mean, they'll figure it out. But if that's the easiest access point for people, that's what they're gonna do. I mean, I bought that piece of property because it was a dead end street. I loved it. Private, kids can ride their bikes on the few flat areas and actually in Echo Valley. So my concern, and I'm still a little confused when you say it's a temporary. Are you talking about the Echo Valley entrance as a temporary thing until Listener is fully formed?
Yes.
Is that going to stay there afterwards?
Right now, the plan would be perhaps to end that because it is temporary. I mean, if there's a demand from neighbors in Echo Valley to keep it open, once we get the main trail up, then we'd consider that.
I think once you get it open initially, it's gonna
Yeah.
be, it's not gonna close.
Well, there's a fence there now, as you know, and really, it would be opening that fence, putting an opening in that fence, and then you could always close that. It really is gonna determine,
I mean, the stream comes right there. Well, actually, no, it does. It's more to the left, I guess, actually. So I understand where you're.
it
where
is,
you're- where
it's
you're
to the
looking,
left,
yeah.
and when you go, there's like a bunch of debris there.
Yeah,
It looks
you
like a
could
bunch of
go
leaves
right
and
to the dead
sticks
end
and
part.
stuff. And that would be sort of an entrance there, but I'm not sure exactly what the execution of it would be, but I think from a physical standpoint, it would be opening that fence temporarily until we get that Listener Trail.
Okay.
And if it's something that the residents don't want, I mean, we haven't gotten, as I said, to that point yet, because we don't even know if we can use that buffer
I understand.
made, that Listener owns. But I know this committee and the township supervisors have no appetite whatsoever to do anything that is gonna, seriously inconvenience the residents and your properties. So we
Okay.
certainly wanna make sure that you're involved,
I appreciate
And
that.
it
Where do you live on
Right
Springwater
here.
Lane? Are you close to the fence or are you further up?
I
or-
border right up to the old DuPont estate, yeah.
There you go, John, right here.
Okay,
So
There's
the
two
Meadow.
houses at the end of that,
as you go down Springwater, is
I
it to
made
the
a,
right?
I
or is it
have,
to the
I have a
left?
little trail through my
That's-
Oh,
backyard.
he
that my-
has the,
that
he
my
has the
guy
hole
with
in
the
the
trail.
fence.
And my
Yeah.
kids used to
Yeah.
go back to the creek.
Well, thank you
yes.
for creating that.
It's really nice.
It is.
It is.
And they use it to go back to the creek, so they used to fish back there or whatever like that.
It's beautiful.
That's my concern. I mean, you
Yep,
could,
understood.
I understand that the parking and everything like that, but if anybody knows it's there, they're gonna use it and they're gonna find a way. I just don't want, and I don't know, my immediate neighbors don't want cars parked up along there, that people just park, go use that trail, because they're not gonna drive up 252 and around and
No.
traffic times, and it's just pain in the butt.
We perfectly understand your concerns. and
Okay.
It's our job to try to get those concerns dampened a little bit by actions. that we
Okay, well, I look forward to the EVCA meetings again, because we, like I said, we talked about that 2 years ago. It's, and I know some residents voiced those concerns then, and I'm sure, people, I understand why people want the access too, but I also understand why some people don't want it.
Yep.
That's all.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
I mean,
you.
this was a big benefit to us, just you speaking where, from somebody that's right next to it. Any more board comment? Okay, hearing none. Would you like to make the motion?
I think your first step, is to do a presentation to the board.
Yeah.
So I think if that's what your first action is.
Well, I think our first action would be to approve it internally and then,
Well, but
Make the
the way you would approve it internally is that you would do a presentation to the board as a next step. Because I think you have said already that this was one of your top
Right.
five, unless I misinterpreted your
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
before.
but I'm not sure we formally approved it.
Oh, okay, then that's fine.
So will we formally approve it as one of our top priorities and,
Yeah.
and then a presentation to the
And then
board?
present it to the board. And I think the motion would be to, within the committee, approve the temporary Meadow Preserve Trail extension and authorize members to make a presentation to the supervisor.
Say that again? Just trying to make sure.
Basically to create the presentation and give it internally. He's gonna make a motion, or Aaron.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just asking. the motion.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was right here.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
that's all.
All right, do I hear a motion on that?
So we're making, I'll make a motion to approve the exploration of a temporary trail connection to the Newtown Township Meadow Preserve through Echo Valley, and to members of this committee to make a presentation to the Board of Supervisors with our proposal.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Is there any committee comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
1.3.
All right, next we want to go to old business.
What about that one? We didn't get 7.3.
Okay, yep. I- Yeah, I was thinking of doing that at the end, but we might as well do it now. I want to open this up to everybody here. What should we be doing? What is our mission? And also, what shouldn't we be doing? And understand we can get whatever anybody comes up with on the screen so everybody can look at it. Anybody want to start?
So just basically clarifying our mission based on the Newtown Trails and Greenways plan that we had, right? That's what we're talking about?
In part,
Okay. I mean, I'll start, I guess, then.
Yeah, and again, it's not really a mission. I remember when Steve did a mission for the township, was just a couple of sentences. This is what we want to do.
I mean,
Go
I
ahead.
can speak that I have learned throughout this as we've been trying to find our way. Like you said, we're, 9 months old now. And it's so often that we cross over into the other committees or councils or whatever, and trying to really get back focused on building the trails and maintaining the green spaces. So if we're talking about any specifics, we're doing the reviews of development plans. Stony Knolls was one of them. Now we have the Aeronautic plan on our plate to look at. So I think that's something that continually should be. Anytime development plans are coming up, staff and board of supervisors seem to filter through this so we can at least review it and see if those development plans are matching the goals for this township that were approved and set forth so that we can make those recommendations. Ultimately, this committee doesn't have, we don't have the power to, but we have the ability to make recommendations to the board to say, hey, remember this plan and this development should have this, this, and this to match that plan. So far, that's, I think, been something good that I think we should always continue to do. And then the other part is getting back to these
Review and
trails.
Evaluate land development plans.
Yes.
Or green spaces and trails.
Yeah, yes.
For green spaces.
For green spaces and trails, yeah. Because I think that's something that was a really nice thing to go through, and I look forward to continue to do that.
I agree.
And then we're going to talk about it in the next part is what you added, sir, to the prioritization is getting back to actual trails, building the ones that we have shown on that plan. So those are really the only comments I have.
Okay, so your second would be to implement the open space or the trails plan?
Yep.
And,
As you said, prioritization.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. We're also charged with implementing the open space plan. So we should be on the lookout to review opportunities for open space. And this comes into play, I think, with the official map that Anthony is working on.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, the thing I'm working on, I forget. Yes, the official map to identify existing open spaces in the township to try to preserve them. And make sure that this township stays as open and green as everybody likes it. Everybody that moved here probably for those reasons because of how beautiful it is.
So
yes.
creating and revising trail map of existing open.
Preserving.
Yeah. and
Yeah.
preserving.
Yeah.
So we're going to create and revise a map of open spaces and preserves.
The official town map.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was just talking to the stenographer over there.
I agree with all three of those pieces of our mission. The only thing that I would add is walkability. And I have that down with bullet number 2. In implementing the township's trails master plan, making the township more walkable and pedestrian friendly, because I feel like that's that and implementing the official map, the open space plan, and the trails plan. It's really about giving people trails and places to walk, in addition to, preserving
That's
and
based
growing
on
green
the-
space.
That's based on the study that was given to us by Steve.
Mhm.
I don't think you heard.
So on bullet number 2, I would just add walkability.
And just so also the people from the public that are here too, I mean, the trails thing, she brought up a good point, walkability. That includes sidewalks
The master plan.
in new developments, in the master plan. So if you look at the trails map that we have, it's not technically trails in the sense for all. Some of them are legitimately areas where it's unsafe, where people are currently having to walk alongside the road in really sketchy locations. I know on 252 is a couple,
Yeah.
stuff like that, where part of this committee is supposed to also be going into sidewalks for safety for a lot of that. I mean, we see it all the time with people that work at I'm drawing a complete blank right now. I apologize for the senior community that are coming from the bus. We see
Yeah.
kids walking along the major roads, and that's something, just so we're clear on the vernacular we're using when we say trails, it includes that.
And also something we haven't talked too much about as a committee, it includes bicycle lanes throughout the township. And we have a lot on the plan, and we just have to get into those at some time in the future. We're looking for the fairly easy ones initially to try to get something up and going and approved by the end of the year.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff helps us get grants as well. Because if we have safe access for pedestrians and bicycles, that's another way we get money from the state for these grants, because they want to see that. They want to see that you're promoting all that, not just the trail connector that not a lot of even people are going to see or know about, but also that kind of stuff.
Okay, thanks to Terry McCarthy, we've done a lot of trail walks and events. And that certainly should be up there.
That's true. I guess continuing, I guess a bullet item for this one be continuing to promote the trail network and the public outreach associated with that.
Mhm. What about things like trail maintenance and plantings? We're thinking of
Planting service?
working with an outside group to handle the maintenance. That was discussed at our last meeting. But
Would that really be us, the maintenance, or would that be a different?
I don't think that's part of our mission.
I'm sure. George, what do you think?
So I'm going to defer to Steve, but I think that the township normally would be the ones to maintain trails that are installed.
yeah, over and above that, we're working with an outside group. We might have a liaison role. Remember, we had talked, George, about getting them involved.
Yeah, you may, I mean, I think that the basic maintenance will be held by the township,
Mhm.
but I think there will be, opportunities for trail groups, potentially this committee and or, Friends of the Trails or whatever, to come along and do some
Mhm.
more, particularly what I would call like growth cutback kind of things, where you have things kind of growing into the trail, like cleaning that back. Our focus is always on making sure the trail path is safe. That's what we're going to focus on. But as we grow the trails, there's going to be more need. And I don't know that we'll have enough, George's team is really good, but as for every mile of trail we add, there's an increased amount of time that has to be spent. And if we were to build out all the trails in town, I don't think that our public works team could maintain all the trouble, if they can maintain the surfaces, we're going to need people to help maintain some of the other stuff as we
Maybe
go along.
we could say coordinate collaboration with local communities for beautification and education regarding trails. That would
Yeah,
encompass all of that.
that's a good way. Also, I look at Goshen Road, and it would be wonderful if we had daffodils and things, which we already did. I actually planted some about 30 years ago, and they're still coming up. But if we could lane that whole Goshen Trail with flowers or wildflowers, whether would be our group, the EAC, started a planting in and around the township, so that's not unheard of. But I would think that would be primarily the ambit of the outside group that we work with.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, with new trails, we obviously will have plantings that's associated with those because, one of them is evergreens, privacy for the trails if they're adjacent to private property, that kind of stuff. But with the existing trails, is that under ours as well, the plantings on those? I'm not sure. Honestly.
Yeah, I would think anything adjacent to the trails
Okay.
would be under that.
Okay.
But again, it makes more sense for the outside group to handle that.
Okay.
I mean, that's something that would be determining sometime in the future. Let me throw some out. What about educational events? I mean, we're doing some of that now, but it's not specifically.
Well, I was saying that we could have added that with the one above.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
maintain, beautify, and community education, like, because we can do that with outside groups. That would be part of
Yeah.
the collaboration.
Mhm.
And that's part of the promoting too. When we
Mhm.
did the, man, I cannot think, I'm sorry.
I know.
When we did the recent trail walk where they used to have the 4-H, what is it called? Garrett Williamson.
Carolyn.
They had educational parts associated with that. They were, where they were constantly explaining to people at different spots. We had different trail leaders taking different routes so that everybody could kind of learn about the individual spots within that property. So, yeah, that's kind of all bundled in, I would think, with that continue to promote.
Okay.
So we could say continue to promote and educate maybe.
Mhm.
That's good. All right.
And I, from Public Works, I really like the way you're phrasing it and approaching it with collaborate, because I think that makes sense. I mean, we're going to do the maintenance work to keep the trail structurally sound and those kind of things. I think that friends and other groups are going to want to enhance it. You know, they're going to want to beautify it. They're going to make it even better than it is that we might not have that eye for. I mean, we're going to be worried about making it structurally sound, and you're going to be worried about it being beautiful. And I say you, any of the groups.
Yeah, I
Right.
think it's a great opportunity because when we think about, say, our local public schools, perhaps a group at the high school wants to do something within horticulture, and so they could work with us, or the elementary school wants to do a community service project. It allows them to connect with the community in which they live. So.
Exactly. And again, as collaborating together, I mean, there will be times that there could be volunteer groups or the scouts or a school or something
Exactly.
that are going to want to work with the physical maintenance of the place. You know, sometimes it's boring because you got to put down gravel, or you have to fix some asphalt or something like that. That's part of it. Other groups are going to specialize in beautification and enhancement. So again, I think it'll all work together.
Any other suggestions?
Kind of encompasses everything, like when we said, I think it was like in January or December, when we were making a list of like the different committees and different things that we want, I think this really brings it down like at a bigger pace, like really kind of wide, but then really focuses on all the little things that we were thinking about doing. I think it's really, this number that we have here, 5, I think it's actually doable and really reaches everything that we.
I agree. I think this was a missing piece in, we got to sort of the prioritization list of trail projects.
Yeah.
And everybody had different ideas on what we were supposed to be doing, what's our goal. So having this mission this way, I do think it encompasses everything. And then we can always go back to this when we're looking at our projects and say, are we following what's already been approved in the master plan? And are we following our committee's mission? So I think that those are 2 really good checkpoints.
Is the committee comfortable approving it tonight, given that we are only 5 people and four people are missing? Or do you think we should carry it over to next meeting and get everybody's opinions?
I think it would do well to carry it over, John, to get some others' input.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So if Steve sends this to me, then I can forward it to the committee.
Mhm.
And we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting to approve the committee's mission.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now we move on to old business. Harry is not here to update the information on the Trails Day hike and cleanup at Don Gonella Park. I did go, and I don't know what anybody saw, some pictures, incredible amount of trash I mean, there was big mounds of it that was taken out of Don Guanella. Don Guanella is in Marple Township, by the way. But this was an Earth Day, and we thought it appropriate to help them out, and hopefully they'll reciprocate and help us out. But that location is beautiful. It's about 200 acres, and a lot of it is natural. There's a lot of history there. There are a lot of old mills that you can see remnants of. And I think it's going to turn into a wonderful asset for Delaware County. So. Okay, moving on. Let's introduce the prioritization right here. We got a very good email from Aaron Cook setting down what we did last time. And we did come up with a priority list, but only had four items on it. Trail signage, the SAP trail, temporary meadow preserve, and the access to the Newtown Meadow Preserve. I'm thinking that perhaps the official map should be moved up there. What does the committee think?
An item.
As priority number one.
Well, just to move it up, we can talk about priorities later.
It's already on there. It's what, number 2?
It's number 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you want to rank them in terms of priority?
I don't know. I mean, Mr. Neese, do we need to rank them, or we just say, here are our 5 priorities?
So hit me again. I have your trails. I apologize. I'm doing a couple things here. Trail signage, temporary access to the Meadow Preserve. And then a temporary meadow trail. Is that the one we just talked about a few minutes ago?
Yes.
And then the SAP trail. And then what was number 5? I'm sorry.
SAP was number 5.
We were
According to that.
thinking of putting
one
the
you're missing
official
is the
map
official
on there.
map.
Okay. Official map.
Yeah. And
Okay.
just a question here, should the SAP trail be in our priority list since we're not directly involved in it?
Well, I think that if you believe the SAP trail is essential to us moving forward, which I think we've all said that it's a big piece, I would argue kind of like the Newtown Square Branch Rail Trail. We've now got a committee that's going with it. I think it was a pretty high priority. We've all said that. And so that's why we're doing the feasibility study. I think that it's still enough in the, as I think I shared with you last time with the SAP trail, if it's important to you, I think that it helps when we're having the conversations with SAP to be able to say that the Trails and Greenways Committee has said that the SAP trail is, if you decide it's number 2 on your list or number 4 on your list as the top priorities in trails for this year, I think it helps to be able to say that to them as we're negotiating. I mean, I will tell you, we're having good conversations and we're moving forward with some possibilities there. I understand that you aren't directly working on it, but once we get to a spot that we have, that we get permission from SAP, I would potentially tell you it could be to a spot where you would be involved in talking about what the next steps are, what it looks like, how we're putting it in, and those kind of things.
And if that's the case, John, we really need to have that on our radar and our part of our priorities to take that action.
Yeah. Should we also be thinking of putting the rail trail feasibility study up there too?
Well, I would argue the rail trail feasibility is has taken off and left the house, so to speak. It's out of the barn and going down the road, so to speak. We're going through the RFP process, which we'll be sharing with you as we go through. And so it's already, there's a whole committee that's designed to do that. You have a representative from that committee or from this committee on that committee. And so I think that's
Okay.
What we
I
decided-
think you could say that one's already in the works and going.
Yeah.
So
And then
what we
you're gonna
decided
just
in our last
support it.
meeting was that would be categorized as ongoing work.
Okay.
It's under ongoing work, rail trail feasibility
Yeah.
study.
So what we have now, at the moment, trail signage, SAP trail, temporary meadow preserve, Newtown meadow access, and official map.
Okay, so you want to, yeah. so
Are there
you wanna-
any others that you would think should go up there as well?
The only thing I could think is that the official map is listed in 2 of the 3 sections of bullets already as ongoing, so,
So
yeah.
Anthony, just to get you up to speed from
Yeah.
last month, what we did was we tried to look at just putting things, like throwing things against the wall, see what
Sure.
sticks. We tried to write a priority list. And then we decided that some need to be put on as trail projects on the priority list of this committee, and some things need to be categorized as ongoing work. So this is a first draft. It is a very, very loose draft. It was just my notes of what we talked about in last month's meeting. So where each of these initiatives belong and their ranking in any sort of priority list is up to us to decide. So what I heard John say is that he wants to move official map from ongoing work up to one of our priority items.
I have a question. Is it possible for the list that we just created of the goals, if we could put that up on the screen for us? And then as we create this priority list, we could say, do the priorities also match with the goals that we just identified? Because if we can have connection between that priorities, because they're what we're thinking.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, I
Yeah,
think, I
I
mean, I
think
think
it's
the
a good idea.
mission statement is what we have, is just something that has to be reviewed with every one of these individually, yeah.
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 But to your point, Delia, I think if this committee agrees,
Mhm.
what we could do in my just asking Steve if he's gonna send me the mission, then we can also send this out to the committee and come back and put it on an agenda item for next month, since so many committee members aren't here tonight, and say, this is our mission. Read them next to our list of priority projects, and, let's all agree that this is, everything's in order and everything's in line.
Do we want to begin ranking them tonight, or you're more comfortable in waiting until the rest of the people show?
I mean, if we're gonna say 5, do we really need to?
Right now, we have in that email that I sent to you, this was my understanding from last month's meeting. We had the priority list as a first draft as trail signage as number 1, number 2, SAP trail, number 3, the temporary meadow preserve trail, number 4, Newtown meadow access. And then I think what John just said is he wants the official map put up there.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to add the official map as number 1.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be number 1, but what do you think about trail signage as being number 1? Shouldn't that be a little bit further down the list? I mean, the official map, I think, is very important. The SAP trail is very important. And then it goes down from there. I would tend to think the signage might be toward the bottom.
I think the only reason that we put that at the top was because Beth was already working on it.
And it was low hanging fruit.
It was one of the quick hits.
Something to get a quick hit on
Yep.
that.
Okay, but
Something
what does priority mean? Is it the most
was my
important
question.
thing, or is it the thing we want to get to first?
My question is, like, if we're gonna rank, what does ranking tell us to do? Like, are we ranking this, meaning this is the first thing that we need to make sure that we do, so that way it's completed, and then that way we can move on to the next? So like, once we do number 1, then we move to number 2? Or are we moving to all of them?
I think
Right,
we
or they-
move.
or these are the
Yeah.
5 things that we want to accomplish in the next 12 months.
Yeah.
And in any particular order based on where things happen,
Mhm.
discussions with SAP. Well, we can't move, that could be our top priority, but we can't move on it right now.
I mean, from what you're saying, I think since there's only 5, and if you look at the people that are already associated with some of those, like you said, SAP, that seems to me like we can divide and conquer on them fairly easily, because Beth is going to work on the trail signs, but Beth isn't necessarily going to be involved in some of the other 5. So I think they can work parallel.
I just have been incognito, but I'm on that with that too.
What?
And I'm on that with that too.
That's fine.
If I go like this.
So the idea from last month was, this is what we wanted to present to the Board of Supervisors, is 5 priorities we can say that we'd like to get done in the next 12 months. In no particular order, but it really was a product of our discussion last month to say, we voted, we made a motion and voted on presenting our priority list to the Board of Supervisors, so they know what we're working on, and they're also buying in. If they look at a list of 5 things we have in priorities, and then we're also submitting side by side a list of 9 things we have as ongoing work, they may say, you're not going to get anywhere with these 3. Why don't you move these 2? Or we have made progress on these 2. It was really just a way to get buy-in from the Board of Supervisors that we're on the right track. That was my understanding of the conversation we had and the reason we listed these during the meeting last month.
I mean, I think the priority list is great. It's a great way to communicate with our Board of Supervisors of exactly what we're doing. So that way it could just be like a check-in. Here we are, this is where we're going, this is progress. So we can just have clear communication of what the community. So.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about prioritizing at this time,
Yeah.
than just getting them before.
Yeah.
I mean, if it'll help you, I think that, the fact that you have them, I do think that, I don't think you need to say this is number 1, this is number 2, but I do, if you have you might be, when you do the presentation, that, particularly when you're talking about specific trails, that you talk about what's wins for the community. And, and I might mention to them that as you present this, I might talk about, because I think you may be doing this while I'm gone. And that's why I'm telling you how I would do
Okay,
this. I might mention to them things like, we're in high support of the Newtown Square branch rail trail feasibility study, but we see that as a committee that's doing that. And so we're not taking that on. We'll support it, and we will be a part as they go through the public process of making sure that the public's engaged in that. But that we're not, you as a committee aren't necessarily taking any stand on it. Number 2, we're talking about the connection out here between Westchester Pike and Bishop Hollow Road, right? And we talk about coming down Ellis Avenue and putting in a sidewalk. If you'll recall, you all were the ones that came back and made the recommendation to the board that that's how we should spend those grant dollars. And you would say, we think this is still a high priority for the township, but we've now handed that off and you guys are kind of running with that. We have a priority for the SAP trail. And what our concerns are is making sure that that gets put in, and so you're talking about that, understanding that the township's working with SAP, but we're ready to get in and get involved as needed in the process. And then go into your next ones. And I think you could talk about why they're important without necessarily saying this one's more important than that one, if that makes sense.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, are we ready to vote on those 5 items? Do I hear a motion?
Yes.
Motion to approve the 5 items.
Second? Any committee discussion?
I just want to review that those 5 items are the official map, trail signage, the SAP trail, the temporary Meadow Preserve trail, and the Newtown Meadow access.
That is correct.
Those are the 5. Okay.
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Good job.
update on the rail trail.
Okay, next is 8.2, update information on the rail trail feasibility study. Joe Falcon couldn't make it. Mr. Neese, would you like to bring us up?
Yeah, so we received back 2 RFPs. The board is, or the committee will be meeting with the 2 consultants and hopefully be prepared to make a recommendation to the board either at the meeting on the 23rd or potentially the first meeting in June and get that project kicked off. It's about a, if I recall right, it's about a year time frame for either one of the 2 consultants to get the feasibility study done.
May I ask who the 2 consultants are?
I would say not at this point. When they meet on the 19th, I think it would be appropriate at that time. Until they've met with them and done that, I would say, I mean, we can ask, you can ask.
I just figured, like, obviously no decision. I was just wondering who it was.
I mean, I really at this moment can't remember the 2 names, and that's why I'm stuck.
You made me think I was doing something wrong. You just can't remember.
No,
I do.
I'm remembering one and not the other, and I just
Okay.
wanted to.
Yeah.
All right.
We're going to publicly discuss it on the 19th.
But you're satisfied that there's enough expertise within the 2
Oh,
people to move forward?
oh, absolutely.
Well, that's what I was asking. Being in the industry, I wanted to know like who were those firms that.
Yeah, in the moment, I'm drawing a blank on one, and I don't want to list just one without the other one.
Welcome to the club. I do that all the time.
So it's, yes, you can ask. I'm just having a moment. So,
Okay. All right.
They get more frequent.
well, then you're all in trouble if I continue in my role.
Okay. Moving on, 8.3, update information on the Reese's Run Greenway Trail. Nothing to report at this time. We're still waiting to meet with Paul DeBatton. Moving on, 8.4, update information on the official map. Mr. DiVincenzo.
All right, so we've met a few times internally with the little, subcommittee going on this. And luckily with John's history of the township and, me being fairly new to the township, understanding some of the areas, we looked over the original township plan for the Greenways and Trails Committee, and we had identified in that plan, or Gilmore did, different green spaces that were there that were high priority or targeted for whatever reason due to their natural beauty, their importance to the environment, or just in general that they were open spaces. And then what we did was we kind of went through, some of those have already since been developed. So, because that was August of 2020 when that plan actually got submitted. And then as Steve said, didn't get approved until during the pandemic at some time. And then our committee in July. So we did identify some of the ones that are still open. Some of them are small. They're buffer pieces that are next to adjacent parks that we already have. We identified, I think, 5 so far.
That weren't on the plan.
Some of them were not on the plan at all. Yes, so there was one that was not identified on the plan at all. Some of them had disappeared. So let me say I have 2 that weren't identified at all. And 3 additional ones that were identified in the plan that as we go forward for the green spaces preservation, try to make those a priority. Right now, again, I think 2 of them are adjacent to existing township property. 3 of them, I'm sorry, 3 of them are adjacent to township property. And the other 2 are just out there kind of lone. One of them is immediately next to the Stony Knolls property that we recently had approved or reviewed the development plan. So that's kind of the update we have right now. I've been kind of on my own. I have a friend that kind of gets into this and GIS mapping and looking at this kind of stuff to make a better presentation model. So as I then understand, we want to put this out to the board. So my plan is to, in the next couple of months for our meetings, put it on the agenda where I have a plan to present to everybody else. Here's some of the properties that we identified. Here's the ones that unfortunately are no longer available from our plan. And here's how we'd like to modify it so that once we vote on it, Then we can go to the Board of Supervisors, kind of similarly procedurally as you had said with the other stuff, and say, here's what we're proposing. Here's the ones we really want to target that we think are important, need to be on there. And we've also, John, what was the township that we use as inspiration for how they showed their map? We're trying to learn from other townships that have done. Willistown, thank you. So that's been a big help, just trying to see how they've kind of done things.
Yeah.
So
They have
the
done a
update.
wonderful job out there.
Yeah, it was really easy to understand. Again, like I'm only been in the township, not even 2 years yet, and really trying to understand how all these individual developments and communities kind of connect, where our public spaces that we already have connected. It's been a good learning experience for me of showing where that is. And I can totally see why these particular properties are important to our overall plan. Every one of them connects either with already owned township lands or trails and sidewalks for the walkability that we're already connected. So that's why we were focusing our efforts. These are spots that are going to be important and that meet our mission that we had out there. That's my update for right now.
I had sent out an email to some of the other groups within Newtown Township to see whether they could come up with some leads. We did get one land parcel back that we're going to add to the official map. I may check with them one more time to see if anything else has come up, but I think we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, that's the one. So the one that John's referring to, he sent me yesterday. It's a 13-acre parcel that came off of the market. It was on the market. It connects with our neighboring township, Radnor, in the park, Skunk Hollow, I believe.
Yeah.
And again, if you look at our township plan, a big important part of that is connecting not only within our township, but with the neighboring township. So Radnor has a lot of great parks and that has a lot of trails in Skunk Hollow. So it would be a way of giving our residents a way of being able to traverse back and forth into that. And that also, again, that connectivity with our neighboring townships helps our grant application stuff too. So when we go forward with these, if we can show that we're connecting across borders with those neighboring towns, that helps our grant application process.
And Radnor is a treasure trove of trails. They've done a beautiful job. And the more we can connect with them, I think the more effective our trails are going to be.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. That's all I have though in the update
Okay.
for the official town map.
Yeah. We have 8.5 update information on signage to the Newtown Meadow Preserve. Beth Junshisha is not here. Can anybody else report on that? Okay, we'll move on. Next, 8.6, discussion, possible action regarding the Stony Knoll plan review. Mr. Dees.
So I do believe you received that this afternoon, is that correct?
Yes.
So you got their updated plan. It's a 13 house subdivision where, development, single entrance, single, in and out the back. It's basically a cul-de-sac. I know that's being reviewed by our fire marshal as well as by our engineer, because it's actually longer than what we typically allow a cul-de-sac to be. And so, but it's also got very few homes on it. So we're looking at that.
Meaning the length of the road that then approaches the cul-de-sac. Okay.
The road, so if you go in and there's no
Egress.
or and even like if there's no spurs off of it, it's actually considered basically a single road. It's considered a cul-de-sac. That's how we refer to them. And that's how they're defined in our code.
What are the significant changes from the plan we reviewed before?
So the plan you reviewed before, I believe, was 26 homes,
27.
27.
27. Yeah.
So this is now 20, this is now 13. Instead of having a loop going in and out, it's a single road in and this is the same road coming back out. If the lots are larger, which means there's more green space being preserved. My guess is the houses are going to be bigger, just, just so I'm not convinced, I shouldn't say there may be as much impervious space, it's just that the houses are bigger in the process, so.
I looked at it when it came in on the 26th when I was out, because I think that's when we first got it, right?
Maybe.
We got this update before. And it does look like it is an increase in green space overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some, but,
And was there agreement on the ADA accessible sidewalks?
There was on one side originally.
my guess
It was,
is it's on
it was
one side.
approved for the 26 homes and it's still approved. in
I
the
haven't
13
seen
homes.
it. I haven't seen the plan myself. I haven't looked over it, but I'm sure we will be requesting a sidewalk
So
down there.
Steve, Anthony, is this the revision of the plan that we looked at before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah,
I'm
it's the
following.
same plan.
Okay, same.
It's the same plot of land. It's, if I recall, this plot's somewhere around 40 acres.
Yeah.
And
Yes, mhm.
it's being broken up into 13 parcels.
So they made this revision based on the feedback from our committee and the board of supervisors?
No, they,
Just trying to understand.
I'm not going to speak for the developer why he made this. I mean, based on the feedback that we had, his plan that he had before probably would have passed.
Okay,
I think he came back and made a decision for other reasons,
okay.
and I'll just leave it at that. I mean, he called me and apologized, that he was making this change. And I told him as the landowner, he had that right. And I didn't think that it would be met with much frustration because I thought that most people would agree that this was that having less was better than having more.
It's, it's definitely a net positive from the green spaces, and it does appear that the sidewalk is on there.
Yeah, I'm sure,
The
I'm
one
sure they put
question-
it on.
Yeah, the one question I have due to the township ordinance, you were saying about the length of that road that ends in a cul-de-sac, the dead end there. Is it specifically fire access for fire trucks, or is it also for pedestrian safety of getting out from the end? Does that
It's-
go into
it's
it all?
It's more of emergency access.
Okay.
We have a couple of, we've got several, what we call cul-de-sac roads in the town that we have this issue. And George is fortunate enough to live on one of those. And when a tree goes down at the front of it, it means that everybody further in is blocked off. And so we get concerned when the cul-de-sacs are very deep because the impact is really high. And so the good news on this one is there's less, sometimes there's more houses on some roads than others, and that has the impact. But on this one, there's potentially a lower number of people impacted. And because of the price point that I think these houses are going to be, I anticipate they'll be able to at least afford, if they want to, things like generators and things like that, if they need them.
Yeah, I think Mr. Nolan's original plans had big houses and then he reduced them in size. So maybe this is getting back somewhat to where he had in the first place.
Yeah, I think he told me these were going to be larger footprint houses.
Okay.
Yeah, the houses are bigger, there's just a lot less of them, so.
Yeah.
Are there any time constraints that we're under?
Well, so this is going to go before the planning commission on sorry, pulling up my calendar here. This goes on the planning commission on the 27th. And it will go before the Board of Supervisors, I believe, on the 27th of June. So your constraints are that if there's something that you want the planning commission to review, you would need to make sure that you have that tonight come out. If it's something that you just want to have for the board to have your input on, I think you have until after your next meeting.
Yeah, I'll review it again to make sure it looks like, again, I'm looking at this, it's kind of grainy on my tiny screen, but it does look like the sidewalks are in there, which was the important part. Well, the one, not the one along the main access road. And we got more green space. So it's kind
Yeah.
of seems like a.
And I think the
a
planning
win-win.
commission is important because they get down into the nitty gritty.
And did
And-
he still agreed to do a trail? 'Cause wasn't there like a proposal, wasn't there like a connection somewhere?
Yeah.
We had made recommendations at the back end where he was doing that drainage work and along that slope to connect to the neighboring town or the neighboring development. I forget the name of it. But down that big slope on the back end of Stony Knolls, there's another development in there that's isolated. That if you had a trail there, there was a lot of green space there. It would have opened up access not only for these new residents, but these other residents to go to a township border as well. So we made
Is
that
that Hunt
recommendation.
Valley?
I honestly don't know. I'm, again, me not knowing the township as well as everybody else. I don't know the name of it.
I know when we looked at this, that there.
It's on the
we
left.
had recommended to have a connection. It was so long ago, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made the recommendation for one. In all honesty, it would have been a very difficult item for maintenance long-term because of the steep slopes. So we would have had to do switchbacks down that. It would have overall, doing that would have overall helped the drainage and slowing down the speed of water. Because the way that they have their stormwater management plan set up, if we have, the typical big storms that we've been having, every time that happens, it's going to overfill and continue down that hill and go into that neighborhood. So that was part of what we were recommending. Ultimately, though, what they're doing meets code and like standard industry practice for those types of things. So it's like, you can't really compel them. It was just a recommendation we were trying to get forward. So-
And if they're bigger lots, that might leave more room to get some of the things that we originally were trying for. So we'll have to see how that develops.
Well, if they're bigger lots and there's more green space, then it
Yeah.
has the ability to soak up some of the, you won't have so much runoff from hard surfaces, porous surfaces. But I was
Yeah.
more worried about.
It depends on how they
Well, true.
fill
Yeah.
out the lots. If it's just grass, that's not much better
I
than
was worried
concrete.
about the stormwater.
Yeah, again, ultimately, they're doing what is industry standard, meets any normal code. And that steep slope on the backside is going to be difficult. So,
It is Hunt Valley.
is that Hunt Valley?
It's Hunt Valley, isn't
Okay.
it?
It is.
So we can put that as a question mark, whether a trail back there is feasible.
I mean, at this point, I don't know. This is the final plan. You said we have until before the next meeting to make this, right?
Well, if you want it before the planning commission,
Yeah.
for them to make their recommendation, you need to have recommendations come out tonight to go to the planning commission so that they can have it. If you're happy just getting it before the board of supervisors, I think you have until your next meeting. If it goes to the 27th, if it goes to the 13th, you wouldn't have your next meeting because your next meeting's on the 14th.
Yep. Okay.
So you're saying that it has to be done tonight?
I'm saying I am not 100% sure when this is going before the board of supervisors.
Okay,
I know it's going before the planning
Right.
commission for the first time on the 27th of this month with the idea that I don't know, well, I said the 27th, I think it's the 26th, 26th of this month. What I don't know is, are they going to be asking for approval that night? And because it's a change to the plan that the board, that the planning commission may say, we're good, everything's been addressed, we're fine. They may not, and then it goes another month out, but
good.
I know that there's an extension, and I believe the extension is until the 20. I believe the extension is until the 28th, but I'm not 100% sure on that, which would be after the second
Yeah.
meeting of the Board of Supervisors in June.
Okay, I have a question. Is it possible to authorize Anthony's group to come up with recommendations
I think if
Even though
you-
it's
I think if
before our
you-
next meeting.
I think if you want to come back and say, these are the 4 things that we're interested in having a comment on, and here's where we're leaning, and if they want them to write something up, I don't think that's a problem. But I
Okay.
think if you just say a broad statement, I think that may not, that may not be what you want to do.
Okay.
Anthony,
Yes.
when we met on this, they implemented the things that we asked.
Some. Yes. So again, well, a sidewalk within their own development, but they only put it on one side of the street. I personally would have liked to see it be a T sidewalk out on the main road, which is, was it Wayland, Whitehorse?
Wayland and Whitehorse.
Yeah, basically, and this is again, I'm looking at other locations where I've worked. I've done a lot of developments in the past history of my work, and almost every new development in most other townships that I've ever seen has been forced to do the sidewalk at the end. So where you're entering their neighborhood, you would have a sidewalk going in either direction on that road, and sometimes it dead ends because the neighboring developments haven't been done yet. But it's a point of you're building a portion that is eventually going to connect into, and that road is rather narrow in general there. So
I think that will be something that I would want us to continue.
Sure.
Because if families buy homes, where will the children stand for the bus? In grass?
no, that's a good point. No, that's a
Right?
great point.
No, they should stand on a sidewalk.
I didn't even think of using that in part of the write-up,
They
but
should
that's,
stand on the sidewalk because the bus most likely is not going to go into the cul-de-sac. The children are going to come to the end of the cul-de-sac, and that's where the bus will pick up. The children should not be standing on grass. They should stand on a sidewalk. And so they should come out for the individuals that may buy the house, because they cannot say who's going to buy the house. People may have children, and that's where the buses will be.
and their meeting's tomorrow, the planning commission, sir?
No, the planning commission is, I think I said it was the 26th. Hold on.
Yeah,
a second.
26.
Oh, what
26.
was the whole
26.
thing about
26.
tonight? What was the whole thing that had to be tonight then? Because-
You're not meeting again before that.
Yeah.
And so if you want something to be before them on the 26th, then you need to
I would-
make your
I
recommendations
would
this
make that
evening.
recommendation because of.
Are we comfortable that now, we have an additional member here now, we have a quorum. I mean, we've already done this once, so really all we're doing is reaffirming recommendations we've already
Okay.
made. Are we comfortable voting?
Let's
on
go
that?
back a little bit. Steve, I thought you said that we could present things after the meeting to be forwarded to the planning commission. Is that not the case?
What I said was that if you want Tony's group to write it up, that's fine, but the basics of what you want should be decided tonight. Not, you can't be making recommendations after tonight to put in and not do it in a public process. You have to have a public
Okay.
process to do it in.
Okay,
So if you want something for the planning commission, then you need to come up with the main things. You don't have to have the details of it tonight. Tony's group can write it up and get it before the planning commission, give them a week to have it.
Yep.
That can happen.
okay.
What the challenge that you have is that because you don't meet again,
Yep.
you can't be making major changes. Like if you say you want the sidewalk in front and then you want to write it up and under why it's important on the main road,
Mhm.
you don't need to go through all the detail with that tonight. You just need to say, we
Sure.
want the sidewalk.
Yep.
We want to make sure, we want to have exploring the option of a trail from the back section of the cul-de-sac down to Hunt Valley. If you want that, then you need to put that in. You need to make those things tonight and say,
Okay.
as the 6 of you, that's what we're interested in.
All right. I think one of the things that we talked about before is a trail or sidewalk along the road.
Yep.
We also talked about a public park along the road, especially in an area that I think had a lot of water in it and could not be built on. I remember that from the time we discussed
No,
it.
the green, if you're talking to the green space that's up along the main road.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, yeah, but we didn't want to park there. We didn't want them to tear all that down because it would have had a negative effect on the stormwater and the environmental
Mhm.
component. That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Because it's way too small to put really much.
It's way
of
too
anything.
small now, but now we have bigger lots. I think what we may want to do is put a number of things out so that we have a little bit of wiggle room after the meeting.
Do we, since we're getting short on time, it's now 7:35, do we want to have, Anthony, your subcommittee reaffirm, like you said, the recommendations that you had put in front of them before? And whether that's by email or however you're communicating it to the planning commission before their meeting?
I mean, I would think so, but according to what Steve's saying, on the major bullet items, we need to know what those are right now. If it's just
Well, but I think
reaffirming.
you already have,
reaffirming
what
would
you're
do it.
saying, what I think Aaron's saying, if I'm not misunderstanding her, you already presented one on the last plan.
Yes.
And what you're saying is you want to keep what you had on the last plan, comments vital to this plan.
Yes.
And
clarify.
if there's anything that you have that you want to add, then you would add it. But if you already had comments from the last one, you're just saying you want them to transfer over.
I don't think we're adding it.
If it's
We
a
did.
park, we're at it, because that was not mentioned. So that's why I want to bring that up. That was not written in the plan last time.
Yeah.
I just
I
wanna-
know a park was discussed. We might not have agreed to it at the end.
Meaning like an open space,
I
not a
I
park.
lost in the semifinals.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember, sir. I'm trying to rack my brain, although I haven't slept much in the past month, so maybe.
Why is that?
I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
I think we also have to just consider in what we're taking to the planning commission, the win, that it's only 13 homes, less traffic, and there's increased green spaces. So for our committee's mission, it is following our mission, and to go take your recommendations you gave before and further them to be, whether it's a park or something like that, I'm just not sure. I don't know if the committee agrees on pushing it too much forward into new territory. I do agree with affirming your original recommendations.
I agree.
Yeah, we really only have the two bulleted recommendations from our response last time, and they are the sidewalk and then / reducing the number of parcels homes to maintain green spaces. And we identified that green space along the roadway because especially it was going to cause an additional flooding issue. Because they wanted that would have caused major issues for that neighboring development as well, which I think Nolan lives in too.
He lives.
He lives
down a
there.
little
Yeah,
bit.
he lives
Yep.
there too. So that would have negatively affected his own neighborhood. So we got that. They already gave us that, and they gave us half of kind of the other thing with the sidewalk. So I think, yeah, reaffirming that would be great.
Okay.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
For the babies. For the bus. When they wait for the bus.
I think I think the township's going to stand 100% behind that. We want sidewalks to be put back out on those areas. We asked for it before. We would be asking for it again.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
So are we done on this area?
Do we
I
have to
think
put
we have
this
our
to a vote,
marching
sir?
orders.
I don't know how this works procedurally. Do we have to do a vote on that?
You should vote on what what you're tonight doing is reaffirming your former statement. And if you're adding anything, you would add to it, but that's not what I'm hearing, is that you just want to reaffirm your former statement.
I'm going to rewrite it up though,
Right.
because it's a new plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I move that we reaffirm the original recommendations for the Stony Knoll plan.
And
Second,
forward to the planning commission.
Yes,
Yeah,
and for.
forward to the plan.
Second.
okay, it's moved and seconded. Any other committee comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, moving on, discussion and possible action regarding the Aeronautic plan review. Mr. Neese?
So this is a little different project. It's not really, there's no residential component. It's really expansion initially of, I believe, their patio. be honest, that I believe is already done, which they did for the golf tournament that they had last year. So there's,
Tell them to rip it out.
yeah, right. But so there's a piece of stormwater that management that had to be a part of that because of that addition. And so that's one of the reasons why it's on there. The second part of this, as I understand it, is kind of like a,
Training center.
Training.
yeah, I thank you.
Yeah.
A training center that they're putting in. Obviously, that would probably be more impervious coverage, obviously what it is, but you're talking about a fairly large piece of land that is, you know, a club that's there. And so I don't know what other comments that you would have related to that. The one thing that you might consider stating to them is, and I don't know that you could require it because what they're doing is more internal, but because they do have quite a few tournaments, you might suggest the same sidewalk approach that was done on the Nolan piece in regards to what's fronting St. David's Road. I had to think a minute where we were,
Yeah.
but that might be something that you would come back and say would be something, because they're doing a land development, that would be beneficial. The problem is what they're doing isn't near the front, but it doesn't mean you can't ask for it. It doesn't mean they're going to give it, but it doesn't mean you can't ask.
Yeah, from strictly a engineering standpoint, and I have to look at it and scale this and check it, but it just looks like where they're doing the T areas and green, that whole spot, they're aggressively changing that slope there. But it's draining mostly all into their own property in a way. It just could be, I mean, it'd basically be mostly their own maintenance problem, as I understand it.
Well-
Because it's going to take a while for all that water to make it to the adjacent properties. I mean, you got a long ways to go. So like you said, they're not on the frontage anywhere, the borders. They're kind of really tucked in the middle. But that would just be, I mean, I don't know if the township engineer has to comment.
Well,
I'm
we're
assuming
going to
they
review
comment.
it. One of the things that I will tell you that Aeronautic does, and I only know this because I've had a conversation with them. They actually try to collect all their stormwater and they reuse it to water all their greens.
Yeah.
And so they probably are purposely pushing it to a certain place so that they can accumulate it in their stormwater. They have some ponds, and then they use those ponds to feed their watering system, which I think is an awesome way of reusing reusing rainwater, and takes a good advantage of that, because you know they run sprinklers probably every day, particularly when it's not raining. So I've even seen golf courses that the sprinklers run when it's raining. So you know, so this is, you know, what I would say is they're probably purposely making it go towards their area so that they can accumulate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going into away from any existing current retention ponds. It's going more to a natural gully that they have. But again, it's not going to affect any neighboring properties as I see it, just with a preliminary look. So yeah, I don't know, other than the recommendation that you said along St. David's Road. And I believe on our master plan for the trails and greenways, I think, didn't we also talk about, I think there's a bike path near that, where that circle is and along that road in the future, coming off of 252 as well. I have to look at that again.
Yeah.
I could have swore there was one in that plan. I have it up real quick, but. Yeah. Where's it at? Here we go.
So
Yeah,
what
there
time?
was. So maybe we could add that.
Yeah, are we under the same time restrictions, Mr. Neese?
What I don't know is how fast this one's going to move through the process. It's not a big project, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
It could very easily move through very quickly.
Okay.
So I would say you potentially are.
May I ask, it may not be under this, but writing about golf courses,
there's sustainability that they want to do with their water, but they don't normally think about plants that would be indigenous. I wonder if any of the other committees are considering Aeronautic to do the same thing that we're all doing, native plants and trees and help our pollen.
So.
They're kind of like a big desert.
So what I would tell you from a vegetation standpoint, particularly related to trees, the Shade Tree Commission is reviewing the plan based on that side of it. And they will be, the arborist for the township will be making a recommendation to the Shade Tree Commission.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so are we, for those two items then, do we want to go to the same thing because we're under the same time constraint of recommending sidewalk along the property frontage and the bike path along right there on St. David's Road as well? Since that was part of our, again, that's
Yeah.
on our township plan, so I think that's just easy.
Are
'cause
those
we're-
in the same location?
Yes,
Okay,
but the bike path is technically on the road
It's on the road.
okay,
and the sidewalk is then
Okay.
pedestrian only.
yep. And that would be nice if they would pay for it, but I'm not sure they're going to do. Are there any other recommendations to be put forth? Okay,
I'm sorry, just a point of clarity. Did you say that the bike path on St. David's Road and a sidewalk on St. David's Road are in the master plan?
I mean, according to just.
Looks like the bike path was in the 2016 comp plan,
Okay,
as I'm reading this. And then we were looking for a segment of trail along that same area. So I would think that the sidewalk could very easily serve as that. And I mean, we could make a trail and or sidewalk if you wanted to. The one reason why I mentioned sidewalk is because of the golf tournaments that they have there, we have a lot of people walking from usually St. David's Circle. People get dropped off and then they walk.
yeah, the
up.
parking's
good
at
point.
Episcopal.
Yeah,
And
and
they
so
walk down.
they walk through there. So this is one way of keeping them off the road and putting them that way. But that's the reason why I said sidewalk, but the trail would work as well.
So are you saying that the bike path is not included in the more recent up-to-date plan?
No, it's here, but it was originally listed in the 2016 comp plan, and that's how it made its way into here.
Understood, okay. Because I'm also looking at from like when they do those event plannings, they always end up having police presence alongside the road or, you know, workers direction. If you had a bike path at that point, that actually gives you more of a shoulder, so to speak, for usage only when they have those events, but then long-term, not year-round, because most people aren't going to be biking year-round, but during the main part of the year, you would have access to it all year as well, so.
We have some very hardy bikers in Newtown.
I used to be one of them, yeah, but.
I mean,
You
I
grew up.
know some guys that
No.
were out in December and January and February, and I was thinking, oh, good for them.
yeah. Okay, Anthony, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to include the two recommendations we just discussed, being a sidewalk and a bike path, which is in conformance with our Trails and Greenways plan, and make a formal response to the Aeronautic development plan and have it done before the township plan, and have it submitted to them, the planning commission.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any committee discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're getting near the end, but I think it's really important to discuss if we're going to be doing presentations before the supervisors. Because we have the project priority list, we have the temporary Meadow Preserve, we have approval of the Friends of Marple Newtown Trails, and we have the official map. How much time would be allowed? before the
So my
supervisors?
recommendation to you would be I would set priorities, and then I would suggest that for your prioritization, for sure you would do that potentially at the next meeting. I'm being a little hesitant saying doing a whole lot at that meeting because I think we already had 4 presentations that night. So if you want to be taken seriously, you don't want to be lost in the crowd, right? And so, but my thoughts are if you put your priorities together, that would be my first thing, and I think that makes sense to get those before the board, saying this is what we want to try to accomplish in 2022, or at least in the next year, whether it rolls over a little bit into 2023, and then be prepared at the June meeting to come back with the one that you think maybe 1 or 2 of the others, and then bring the last one maybe at the last meeting in June.
Mr. Neese, would this be an appropriate time for us to ask, because I know previously when we talked about budget line items for the trail signage, would this be the time to ask for funds to pay for the signage?
I think until you know specifically what your dollars are, we have monies budgeted already for that. I am going to be meeting the chair and the vice chair are going to be receiving an email. I'm going to be meeting with all the committees and all the commissions and all of that. I believe it's June 21st, to actually start talking about budget for 2022 and what we're looking at. And so we'll be doing that.
Would we be able to
I
list,
mean, 2023, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
would we be able to list some of our accomplishments so far in that time period?
I think that here's what you might want to do is talk about your accomplishments and talk about your priorities. And if you can do that in 3 to 5 minutes, that's a win.
And that's in
agree.
the upcoming June meeting.
That I'm saying for the May 20.
Oh, good. Okay. And then by the June
So-
meeting, so we'll have the priority list discussed in May. By the June meeting, we would then do a presentation on the main priority, that for whatever that number 1 priority is, we would do in the June meeting, and then July subsequent and keep going out.
I think if you want to do one on June 13th, you need to decide tonight what that is. Okay, because I'm looking at my calendar, you don't meet again until the 14th, if I looked at it right. So if you want to present, like your priorities and what you've accomplished on the 23rd.
Yeah.
And then decide what you want to present on the 13th. And then if you want to present again, we can put you on again.
So Anthony, what we did last month was we made a motion to, as we went through our agenda last month, we voted to approve our affiliation with the Friends of Marple Newtown Trails for maintenance of the trails. We voted on priorities in front of the board and the official map. And then at the end, remember, we decided, let's put all 3 of those together in a motion and approve presenting them to the Board of
Okay.
Supervisors. So if we plan for the May 23rd meeting to do our accomplishments thus far and our priorities, then the question is, we could do Friends of Marple Newtown affiliation for maintaining trails. That would take less than 1 minute. When will we be ready to present on the official map? That could be June,
I think
or it
that
could be July.
I personally think that can be. I mean, John, you and I and
We're already
Joe,
working on it.
we're already working on it. And honestly, John had reached out to other groups to add to that official town map. So really then that's just it. We need to have a deadline of,
And we better if
those
we
are
got a
due.
little bit further along.
what's that?
The further along we get, the better presentation.
Yeah, agreed. And again, we've got those handful of properties we've identified. So I think I feel comfortable saying that by the June Board of Supervisors meeting, we should be able to present on the official town map.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so I would make a motion then that members of this committee would present to the board in their May meeting on the 23rd, accomplishments of this committee thus far, our priority of projects, and our affiliation of Friends of Marple Newtown for trail maintenance.
Yep. Make a motion?
Second? Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then is the next one then, all right, so I'll make a motion then for presenting to the board regarding the official town map on the June meeting. 13th. June 13th, yeah, correct.
Second,
Do I hear a second?
I
Aaron
second the
seconded.
motion.
Moved and seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, items for the next agenda, we've discussed in part. Any other?
So did you talk about the table at the park?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
you're
we
all
did.
good. All right.
Yeah.
He updated us for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He gave us an
How many
update.
are coming this Sunday? We got that. And the other was 78 signed up,
Wow.
400 in the other group. Oh, Wade is coming. That's right. Wade Pollock will be speaking on Sunday about the bee garden. Sorry, I missed it.
Oh.
His graduation week. Baby's graduation.
All right, we need to move along. It's
Yep.
5 minutes of 8.
Yep.
Any further committee comment? Any public comment? Do I hear a motion to it?
But-
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. Yep. Just state your name and address.
Sure. Evan Pappas, 124 Tyson Road. I wasn't really sure what to expect here at this committee meeting, but I was very pleased to hear Aaron's comments about walkability and some other comments about bike paths and connectivity. So look forward to seeing your plans come to fruition. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
I'm on
you so
Tyson.
much.
3414. The other. Evan Pappas.
Pappas.
Pappas with a P?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate
Nice to meet you.
Thank you
appreciate
so
you coming.
much.
Thank you.
We like company.
Yeah.
All these chairs.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in
And-
favor signify by saying aye.